Welcome, everyone. I'm Myles Calvert, president of SGCI. Welcome to one of the many virtual opportunities we're offering for our members. As many of you have read already, we have changed to a biennial structure, with the virtual and international programming being the focus for 2026 and our popular conference for the fall of 2027. This is a smart swap for us. We now rotate with the MAPC conference and give ourselves time to properly plan and execute exciting opportunities. Thank you for your membership. And please stay tuned for 3 events announcements, which are happening within the next few days. Just letting people in. We are joined by podcast royalty, Anne Shafer, curator, art historian, and previous curator of prints, drawing, and photographs at the Baltimore Museum of Art, now creator and producer of Printmark podcast, and Miranda Metcalf, art historian and founder of Hello Print Friend Studios in Thailand, and of course the Hello Print Friend podcast. Both and their podcasts are promoted on the SGCI website, so please make sure you listen and subscribe. So this feature topic for tonight is why printmaking works, the institutional case for the printed image. Anne and Miranda will cover how museums collect, what curators look for during studio visits, why institutional collecting matters, how to get your work seen and acquired, and you'll have some time to ask some questions at the end. So please use the chat feature. That's ideal. We'll try out the audio. We'll see how that goes. Please keep yourself muted for the talk, but use the chat as much as you wish. This talk is being recorded and we'll release it edited with captions on the website for all of our members afterwards. Anne and Miranda, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Miles, for the lovely introduction and for the invitation to have what I think is a really important talk. So we're excited to get into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can promise, the answer to how to get into an institution, but we'll at least explain what the heck happens.
Unacceptable, Anne. We want guarantees by the end of this hour. I think it is, as we'll get into, like it is complicated, multifaceted, many, many factors, but I think what we really can do is offer an outline, offer some best practices, offer what to expect, and just maybe peek behind the curtain a little bit, which I think is something that artists are often looking for, because I think that the whole pipeline of institutional collection is usually pretty obscured. So yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's always felt opaque even from the inside out in my office at the museum. And let me preface all of this by saying I'm no longer at the Baltimore Museum of Art. I haven't been there since 2017 when a new director cleaned house. So what's going on there now is very different than what was going on when I was there. I can only speak to my experience.
Well, thank you for it. So I just want to jump right in with the time we have and just ask, what are key factors you or other curators you've worked with, what do they look for if they're acquiring work from a living artist?
Well, there's several camps of curators, to tell you the truth, and I'm sure you've all met all of them. And if you haven't, you'll recognize them immediately. They're the curators for whom only blue chip will do. And if the blue chippers make some prints, maybe that's cool because they're more affordable and they can fill a wall space that's empty. Then there are the people who care about telling stories, and that's where I put myself. If I came across somebody's work and I felt that it told a certain piece of a story that I was trying to explain in an exhibition coming up, I would pitch it, maybe not successfully, but I would pitch it really no matter who it was. Like if one of Bill's prints was, slamming hard on the Supreme Court, and that's what I was talking about, I'd be like, we're pitching Bill today. May not be successful, but I think there are different kinds of people. So even further, it depends on the curator that you are, the curator you're working with in the department, the other curators who are covering contemporary art across media, and the chief curator and the director. And so if any one of them is like, nope, you just put it away and put it in your pile of it got away. So it's not always as simple as me saying Bill's work is perfect for this show. I mean, probably 75% of the time that worked. but it was frustrating because I would have collected everything.
Right. And is it sort of, if I'm hearing, sort of like a hierarchy, like different gates the acquisition request has to get through, and at the top of that gate is the museum director, generally?
No, there's usually a museum acquisition committee.
Okay.
But I will say, and you probably will have guessed this over the years, that the acquisition committee basically functions as a rubber stamp. So if
Mm,
it has gotten through my co-curators in contemporary and through the chief curator and the director, then it's probably a sure thing, unless something's really weird. But there's definitely gatekeepers for sure.
yeah. And then, so in terms of what you look for, how much, and again, you said there's different styles, so this is obviously going to be different for a blue chip collector, curator person, but how important is an artist's CV or exhibition history? Like if you have a piece that you think is perfect for your show, perfect for the story you're trying to tell, but maybe the artist hasn't gotten an MFA or hasn't done a solo show before, would that be a barrier for you in proposing them for the show?
Well, the way that would become a barrier is if the other curators would say, "Well, I've never heard of that person,"
Mm.
which happens. Sometimes I can talk past that part and pitch the work for its own merit, regardless of who made it. But yeah, it's hard. Like I don't care if somebody has an MFA. That doesn't make one whit of difference to me if you're making good work. Um, but it does matter to some people. I mean, it's real. Ugh, there's so many different kinds of curators, and they can
Right.
be really snotty bitches, and they can be open-hearted people like me. Who doesn't have a job anymore. So I see where that goes.
Curators are just people, right?
Well, I
Like,
always say that we're all just people with cool jobs. Yep.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And so when you're telling your story and there's someone who, let's say, like is sort of perfect for it as you see it, but you do have that resistance. How much pushback do curators usually get? Like, do you get like 3 a year that you just get to push through, or does it vary a lot?
It depends on the institution completely and what the little pockets of money are. In Baltimore, we were pretty fortunate when I was there. Our chief curator was a print person, Jay Fisher, and he was very supportive and had the same philosophy that we did in the department of, we should grab them early and cheap so that we have them for the next curator to say, hey, that print is perfect for this show. There so many institutions don't have that kind of print understanding people. I mean, some institutions that should have print departments don't even have, like the Brooklyn Museum never hired a print curator after whoever it was left, Maryland, I think. Um, Even though they have a stellar print collection. So it's just so dependent on the institution. I mean, in the end, I think making personal connections with curators is the best thing to do. Like if this is what I always tell artists. If I have done a studio visit with you or I have, deep dived on your stuff because I think it's perfect but got pushed back on or whatever, I want you to know that you're in my brain. You're in the slideshow that runs in my brain all the time. And if I'm doing a show somewhere randomly, like if Miranda says, "Why don't you come to Chiang Mai and do a show for me on, the Supreme Court?" I'm calling Bill because I know his work. I know he's got it. What is gonna, So it's I for me that's what works. Like I know James Allers because came on the pod. I know his work. I know exactly where it would fit in if I were doing a show on, XYZ. So just know that you are fully entered into my brain.
Yeah, that's really similar to what I would tell artists when I was working in commercial gallery settings as well, is I got many emails a week of artists introducing their work to me and to the gallery in general. And, you know, there's so many limited resources, right? And unfortunately, in the United States, that balance of extremely talented artists doing very good work and wall space is, yeah, there's way more artists doing work that needs to be shown than there is wall, like institutional white wall space to show it, is what I'm trying to say. Just kind of anecdotally and really interestingly, I think it's actually the opposite in Thailand. There tends to be more institutions than there are artists. When I worked at a gallery in Chiang Mai, the artists totally had all of the power because of that. So I would sometimes write an artist and ask for more work. And I had one artist be like, sell the work you already have. Like, because she could just pack up shop and go to another one. So just kind of as an anecdote, it's not universal, but that's definitely the way it works in the US. So I would get a lot of people introducing the work. And even if I didn't have a show for them, I didn't have the resources to represent them, they're then in that roster, in that brain. And if the work is good, it really sticks and it will come back up around. So it's all a long game, I think, is a huge part of it, right?
Yep.
And so what you were saying about building relationships with curators leads me to my next question, which is, how do you do that? Like, it's very easy to just say, just go befriend your local curator, but how does an artist actually do that? And maybe particularly if they're interested in institutional relationships and maybe they're not living in a city that has institutional building network,
Right.
museum. Yeah.
Well, there are a couple ways to do it. I mean, the BMA has a print drawing and photograph society that you can join as a supporter of the department, and they, some of their funds go towards acquisitions every year. And there's events, obviously. And so that's one of the easiest ways to get to a curator, is to, if you're near an institution that has one of these groups, or a print club, like the Print Club of Rochester. I'm sure they have curators come in and give talks. Like, introduce yourself and say, hey, I'd love it if you came to see my studio sometime, and then follow up. I mean, I'm not opposed to getting emails from people saying, take a look at and if you're interested, give me, let's talk about it. So, and now I have the podcast to do that. I just look at their work. I'm like, oh, I need to talk to you. It's very
Yeah,
handy.
definitely. And so if, let's say, I'm an artist and I want to start building a relationship, but I'm living in rural Idaho and I may not get a chance to just head down to my local art organization that's going to have important gatekeepers coming through. I mean, if you can, I was thinking, like, I was going to say, reach out via email, but I feel like, curators' emails aren't even necessarily public on websites. So what advice would you have for someone maybe outside of a metropolitan area?
I would suggest that they join Saga,
Mm.
because they do I guess they do international, but national shows, and there's member shows once a year, and there's the little mini print show in the summer. And I poke around in those lists that when they come out and see who's showing what. And yeah, and also I would submit to juried shows. Like when I did Houston, some of you were there. Nick, where are you? There you are. I saw your stuff come across the wire. I'm like, yes, thank you. Like I, wanted to see their work in person, hadn't had an opportunity to do it yet, got them into the show, and there they were. And those people who came to that show are fully in my brain. Every show that I've ever juried, all of that stuff's in there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see a curator is during a show for your favorite local, Print Houston, Print Austin, Print Santa Fe, or whatever, you should submit.
Yeah, and I think to that end, not to be the most shameless promoter on the platform, which is hosting us, but conferences,
Exactly.
right? So there's the network that you get through joining professional organization. They often have a list of contacts and sort of like a roster of who's available for it, which you might find in professional organizations like CAA for another one. Or I'm sure, Anne, you probably know what organizations curators might be more likely to be involved in. So you might be able to find contacts there. And then if you go to the conferences, there's nothing like FaceTime with someone. And just doing the hard thing of walking up and saying, "Hi, I'm Miranda, and I know you're so and so, and I'd love to give you my card." And hopefully they give you one in return that has their contact on it. And I've done that. I've done that a lot, and it can be very uncomfortable because sometimes they have a look on their face where you know they would rather be doing anything in this moment than talking to you. And those might be the snooty, bitchy curators that you talk to or the aforementioned. But, the more you do that kind of, I feel like the more you get that sort of callous to that awkward social moment and you get through it and you survive it. It's just like asking someone out on a date. Just do it a lot. It'll hurt less the more they
Practice,
say no.
right?
Yeah.
It's hard. The conferences are hard because if you're a print curator in a museum, you probably already do or want to belong to the Print Council, which is a group for just print curators and conservators and some scholar types. There's, I don't know if everyone knows this, but museum people are paid crap. And so, I mean, we were bringing in our own pencils. So our travel budget for the year covered print council meeting, wherever it was, and going up to New York for the IPDA and whatever else fairs were going on. And that was it. Like I could never have squeezed in an SGCI meeting or an MAPC meeting. And frankly, nor did it ever occur to me. It seemed like just a different world. And so I wouldn't bank on having a lot of curators coming through on an open portfolio day, unless they're the local people. And I hope they come through if they're local. I hope they're invited. If you guys are organizing a conference, be sure to invite them to those.
Yeah. So I was just thinking when you're like, oh, print council is just for print curators, I'd be like, so like if you just like put up some prints somewhere, you could be a curator and join. Like, what is a curator anyway?
Oh, they
Um,
have their rules for getting you in. It's a process.
Fine.
Yes, they're quite the
Meeting.
gatekeepers.
That's what all of it is anyway. It's sort of silly that way, but
Yeah.
yeah, that is what it is.
The other thing
Uh,
to
Go
mention
ahead.
is when you're trying to make acquisitions in the museum, and if you have people who are supportive of collecting prints, you've got the fight over the money. So there are all of these endowed funds, and they'll spin off maybe $20,000 a year, maybe 50 if you're lucky, probably not. Everybody's fighting over the same pots of money, unless you're really lucky and you have a very works on paper or print centric fund, which the BMA did sort of. We took the proceeds from the print fair that we did at the museum. It was about $25,000 every time we did the fair, and I was free to buy whatever I wanted, usually out of the fair itself, but I could save it for later. So we did a lot of collecting through that you can't touch my money thing
Hmm.
because it was really a fight. Because if you're saving up for a Daria Robledo installation or Sarah Z or somebody,
Yeah.
that's like 25 prints right there.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's a bit of a fight.
Yeah, definitely. You spoke to something earlier that I'd like to circle back to, which is, that idea I think of that the academic art world and the curation art world have a bit of a divide. You said like it didn't occur to you to go to a conference that might be more academic thus far. I know that Myles is doing some really interesting, really wonderful work to looking at expanding the SGCI reach and seeing if we can broaden the scope. And I think that's wonderful and very important. And thank you, Myles. We don't deserve you. But I, as of right now, that divide kind of stands. And so would you say that generally speaking, curators are looking more to the commercial world to get their cues than the academic world, or where do you see that divide coming from? Just,
No,
go
I
off.
think I think no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I feel like the divide between academic and commercial is lessening. Like it's like, film stars who are doing a TV series and it's not taboo anymore. Like the fact that, Nick teaches at William Hobart Smith. William Smith. Sorry, Hobart William Smith. I'll get that right. Edit that out, Miles. Um, is no longer a, oh, he's, he's a teacher because he blah, 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 whatever the stupid thing is. So I feel like that's lessening, but there definitely is a well, at the BMA there was definitely a international commercial bent. Local was a bad word when I was there. It's
Mm,
no longer true. They've completely flipped. We were, the institution of Matisse, and we were collecting Matisse prints like there was
yeah.
nobody's, the family was giving us prints. So, um, pitching academics probably wouldn't have gone very far, um, unless I could buy them out of a print fair and nobody could say no to my spending my own money, which is
Right.
usually what I did with that money. Um, but there's there's a real prejudice in the people who don't get prints. The director who cleaned house once said to me, there's a difference between contemporary art and art made today. So he had a real, like if you had a pie-shaped graph, his definition of what contemporary art was Hauser and Wirth and David Zwirner, and it was in a wedge about, 10% of the pie. And then there's all of you guys making stuff out here. He would never even stop to look at it. And that's just, a prejudice coming out of the non-print people.
Well, and it seems almost sort of counterintuitive. It's just so bizarre that they should take so many cues from that upper echelon commercial art world, because I think you associate institutions as places of scholarship. You associate them as print rooms where you can go study. You associated it with people who are there writing the books that go in libraries that graduate students use to then write their work. And so the idea that they're not really interfacing with people who are also within that more theoretical framework doesn't, and instead going for, you know, where are the billionaires hiding their money this season? Like
I
that
think,
doesn't seem,
yeah.
yeah, that doesn't seem right. Someone should do something about that.
Okay, so the deep dark secret of the print curators is that I would say 90% of them have never made a print or touched one in process. I mean, they handle prints all day, but there's there's no requirement that you, as a scholar of prints, know how to make anything, which I think is a mistake. And I think there's a real intimidation factor, honestly. I think the curators
Mhm.
who are, have their doors shut and they're writing their books in their ivory tower are intimidated by living artists. They'd rather deal with, Matisse or whoever. Simpler, they don't talk back,
Yeah.
I think there's honestly, I think there's an intimidation factor. Like the creators, you guys are the nexus. The whole enterprise revolves around you guys. If you guys aren't making, there is no curator, there is no gallerist, there is no auction house, etc., whatever. So I think people are intimidated by you.
Mm. So curators are like bears.
Some of them.
They're more scared of you than you are of them. Yeah.
I think some of them. Yeah, like the medievalists. Are you kidding? Yeah, I think
Um,
it's hard if you're in a museum that's not really either attached to an academic institution where you can cross over with the studio department, or if you're kind of out in the middle of nowhere and you have no way to kind of break through. Like when we first started doing critiques out at MICA, when I first started paying attention to contemporary art, because I was back in 19th century, Britain and America, I don't know how to talk to artists. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know what I'm thinking. I don't,
Mhm.
like it was really
Yeah.
it's a complete shift in how you think.
Yeah. I want to get back to that so we can talk about studio visits, because I think that's a really important conversation. But just one more kind of logistical side question that I think fits in here. How important is commercial gallery representation to curators' decisions? And it sounds like for you, you were about the work and you were about the artist, you weren't, the other things didn't matter. But unfortunately, not all curators are warm-hearted like yourself. So generally speaking, how important is, and let's say, not everyone's going to be a Hauser and Wirth baby, right? But like some commercial gallery representation for curators.
Well, I think you don't have to necessarily be represented by a single gallery, but if you're making work at Tandem or one of the shops where I'm, constantly seeing who they're working with and what they're up to, or seeing them at the fair or whatever, like that's a stamp of legitimizing, your work if somebody's picked you up for publishing. So, which is no easy feat either. I get it, but that's another back road around the gallery problem.
Yeah, yeah. Tandem, Tamarind, and Hello Print Front Studios in Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Exactly. Go see Miranda and Tim.
Just, very prestigious, very hard to get into your work published here. Um, so yeah, so let's talk like studio visits. So you've gone to the conference, you've shaken hands, you've gotten in an email exchange with your friendly local curator, and they suggest, or you suggest and they accept for them to come see your studio. Oh my God, what happens now?
Well, I always want to manage expectations. Um, the first of which is I'm not walking out of your studio with work in my hand for the museum, period. It's not how it works. It's a long game, takes forever. Um, I once visited a 102-degree temperature studio in Philadelphia. I was like, you should have canceled if the air conditioning's not working. But I need it to be simple. You don't have to put out cheese and crackers, just a water is fine. I don't want to I don't want to feel like I need to stay and eat if I'm just there to look, But I
Mhm.
also, I want to see the latest things, but I do want to be able to say, hey, what's in the drawer? Like, I want to see your older work. Don't hide it away unless you really hate it. And I want you to be able to talk about it. I know that's hard for some people, but if it means that we're going to get into a dialogue about it and I'm going to sort of poke at you and get you to, answer some questions that might help us get to what the nugget is in the art, that's fine too. Um, I also want you to be confident in what you're making, and I want you to know what your prices are. I was so amazed at how many people at the MAPC Open Portfolio couldn't tell me what the prices were on their table. Like,
Mm.
what are you doing here? So just like have an idea. It doesn't have to be like that one's 250. It just these are going for 400, whatever it is. And don't undersell yourself. Like $25 is nice, but maybe raise it to 50.
Yeah, I like the snacks.
I mean, I like a little bit of snacks, but like I don't know. I don't need brown. I don't
Yeah, I'm just like throwing that out as like, another curator's opinion here. When I get really excited if I come in and the artist has
know. Oh,
snacks.
nice. Well, maybe that's the answer, Miranda, is to say, if the curators aren't, well, the curators would never say, but maybe as a part of your exchange, just say, what would you like me to have ready? Coffee? Would coffee be good? Or
Yeah.
waters? Or, do you need
Yeah,
snacks?
totally. I realize that's just like so not helpful because I'm essentially like, you're gonna have to read your curator's mind. Some like snacks, some
Right.
don't,
Exactly. Just ask them. I mean, that goes back to the we're all just people,
We're all just people, yeah.
and they're nervous too. We're nervous too.
Yeah, I think you and I have spoken about before the first time both of us were sent, by our hires up into a situation to do a studio visit. I mean, I remember thinking like, what am I supposed to do? Like this person's the expert. I was just a little like baby early 20s curator. But then I realized, at least from my point of view, what that time was for was getting to know this person, getting to know their practice, seeing the work in person, understanding their process more. It's really about, I think, deepening that relationship, your understanding of the work. So then as you're building something, building a story, you're so much more informed about how you bring their work in, when you bring it in, and all of that. And if you have like little donuts and coffee, then then I'll be real high while I'm looking at it, real stimulated.
I don't need donuts and coffee.
But yeah, but anyway, that's sort of from my point of view, my perspective on, why you're showing up in a studio. Would you say that that reflects your experience with it?
Yeah, I feel like there's an expectation on the curator to say something really smart about the work.
Mm.
And I, at the beginning, when I first started doing them, I was freaked out about, I don't know that my brain works fast enough to process your work and what you're saying to me to
Mm.
spout out something intelligent that's helpful. Like it's stupid if it's just to do it, right? I want to be helpful to you and I want to help, you think about where to move forward with your work, right? So, and usually if you see me standing there silent, it's because there's a slideshow in my head going, you should look at this person, this person, this person, this person. You have cousins here, your friends are in this camp. I'm not trying to like stick you in some column that's solidified or anything, but it's more about how my brain works, which is always to put together groups of friends that could have a nice conversation in an exhibition somewhere down the line.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely something that I've run into during studio visits, is being sometimes a little bit hesitant to make connections, because you don't want an artist to think that you're distilling their work in some way that is inaccurate or a little bit too simplifying. But at the same time, I think as a curatorial brain, what you're saying is that, that is our job, basically, is to be the eye in the sky in a way of each individual artist. Like they're very focused in their studio, they're very focused, and as understandably, on their journey and their trajectory. And I think even if you don't necessarily come away from a studio visit with a curator, with the promise of a show or anything like that, using that opportunity to talk to someone who just is thinking about the work and the practice of contemporary art from a different perspective, and might be able to offer insights for people who could inspire you, directions you can go. And you certainly don't have to take any of it, of course, but I think that can be really beneficial, even if you end up just kind of ending up in the Rolodex of that curator's head and you don't get a call from them for 5 years, right? In that moment, they're a resource to you as well. So hopefully it can be a two-way street in terms of like what you're getting out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm spouting out names at you, like, have you looked at, Rachel White Reed's print, whoever it is, it's not because I'm thinking that you are subpar and that's the person you should aspire to be. It's really, I don't know. I've had students at Micah say things like, well, I don't want to know what everyone else is making. I'm like, you need to know upon whose shoulders you stand, jerk. Because you're making work just like Ed Ruscha or whoever, like, come on, snap out of it. Like, it's a big world. There's a huge cauldron of people making work. And there's a lot of people who are in the social, protest corner. And there's a lot of people in the, more decorative corner and pattern and textile. And, there's a lot of people in every corner.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if there was kind of like a, a useful sort of checklist, if you ensnared a curator and they're coming around, it would be like, as much as you can, be comfortable about talking about your work, know what your prices are, have snacks or don't, and just intuitively know what the curator wants. And I think just, be ready to have interesting conversations sort of without expectation. Do you think I missed anything?
No, I think that's right. Because yeah, the expectation thing is hard because you think,
Mhm.
oh, this person's coming, but 99.9% of the time, nothing's going to happen that day, except
Yeah.
that somebody's going to get inserted into, someone else's brain.
Yeah. Well, and even though like I said, I do have mixed feelings about making all the connections. I think for what a curator's doing in that moment is that they're placing you, within their Rolodex essentially, that I'd be like, oh, okay, this person is doing abstracted text-based work that reflects a critical gender stance. Boop, like it's like in your mind palace as a curator. You're like, okay, I understand. If I place you with these other artists doing something similar, when I'm doing my gender critical exhibition, like you're gonna come up. Because it is a lot like that, I think, I don't keep, and I don't know that any curator really keeps any sort of formal filing system. Maybe some of them do really on the artists they see, but I think it tends to be more intuitive than that for a lot of artists or a lot of curators, excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is intuitive. Yeah. I mean, I often at the museum, we had a small gallery that was put aside for rotating works from the collection in small thematic presentations, which was super fun. And I would, as I was thinking, actually, I had this subject matter list going, this huge Excel spreadsheet
Oh,
that
you
had,
did?
yeah, that had categories like sports, games, monkeys, eyeglasses, smoke, good clouds, whatever it was. Um, Seven deadly sins, and you would come across something that maybe came in through a gift that you hadn't necessarily shepherded in yourself, and you saw it and you said, okay, I know that there are two cousins in those drawers over there. Let me see if I can build. And so over the next 3 or 4 years, I would start collecting towards this small show. And then that worked pretty well. People were pretty convinced by that tactic, which was good. Like everybody always complains, well, it's just going to go in a drawer, blah, blah. And you're like, well, nope, these are going on the wall. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that's another great question though, is why do artists want to be collected by
mm,
institutions? Because a
right.
lot of times you say it does go in a drawer.
Yeah.
Not every museum has that a great space that's just, rotating thematic from the collection. I've met lots of artists who are, let's say, like in MoMA. Have they ever been on the walls of MoMA? No. Will they probably ever? No. But like aside from just that CV flex, why is it so important?
My answer to that is that most print departments have a study room because 0.1% of things are ever out on the walls. And you have to if you're a institution that believes that art is for everyone and it should be accessible, you welcome people in. So if Miranda called me and said, I want to look at, your DERs, I would pull out 20 boxes of DERs for you to look at. And you would
Please
come
do.
in and you would sit and you would go through them, right? But the other thing that happened in the study room is that we would host classes constantly. And I was happened to be the class person for a long time. And every time a class came in, the professor would say, today we want to look at old school screen prints. So I'd go digging through the collection for the coolest, oil-based screen prints and pull them all out or whatever it was, Musha posters, Toulouse-Lautrec, whatever. And every time you did it, it was a different little mini show. And many times works that I had brought in but hadn't been able to put on the wall yet would come out because they were my little babies, I'd be like, oh, this is the Anne Hamilton I just bought. And so I would really get a lot of use out of things in the classroom, which doesn't sound very glamorous, I'm sure, to all of you. I'm sorry, but I always believed, and I still believe, that the print room is the second front door of the museum. And it's the place where many, many young people get their first experience with a museum, period. In Baltimore City, maybe not elsewhere, but here for sure. And if that experience is good, if I can teach them something and entertain them at the same time, show them some cool stuff, make them think, make their little heads go, I got to go try that in my studio. I have succeeded, and I have done it with work that you have either given or sold to me.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's worth it.
Well, and I mean, again, the kind of idea of the long game as well is that, you don't know who from that class is going to remember that print and go on to be a gatekeeper. I mean, it really is, one of the things we talked about when we were preparing for this talk, was the kind of good news and bad news of how much of this is luck, like just truly, truly luck, of being at the right place, the right time, the right work for the right show that falls under the eyes of the right curator to get your work into an institution. And, it's not solely luck, of course. There's talent and effort and being sort of spreading the work out there, going to the conferences and the fairs and looking for gallery representation, to be taken to fairs or getting your own booth at a fair or something like that. Again, like plugs for what Anne does with the wonderful Brooklyn Fine Art Print Fair and the Baltimore Print Fair. Like, these are places where curators are going to be walking up and down the halls and looking at your work in person. So, like kind of doing the footwork to try and get your eyes in front of it. But again, it's like a lot of it comes down to luck, which is hard. Like it's a very hard part of the art world, I think. Maybe just life in general is that the wonderful Jenny Robinson, who is print mother. She has a phrase that she always says, it was better to be born lucky than rich, right? Like it's really true though. It's really true. So that's something to acknowledge as well. But I think also to focus on that if you're doing this work of being in prints and being in the arts, truly because you can't imagine doing anything else, and you're going to be doing it whether or not you're in an institutional collection and whether or not you get an insane chance to run your own studio in Chiang Mai, Thailand, just extreme luck or work for an institution, like whatever it is. So, but yeah, that should be acknowledged as well, and that it's really just best practices to get a little bit luckier, maybe.
Yeah, I would add two things. One is if you have a chance to be one of the self-representing artists at Brooklyn next year and you are at your table, I mean, we had 30 curators come through. I can send you the list. And if I were a curator for a collecting institution now and I was walking through that hall and you didn't engage me, I would walk right by you. And I would never probably look at your work again. So there's a personal connection for me that's really important. Um, and I don't work with assholes. I won't. I won't collect your work if you're pushy and an asshole. I won't do it, no matter how good it is. So, and the other thing to consider, which I know is controversial, and Miranda's going to smack me later, but consider donating. It's an easier sell for the curator, really. I mean, I know
Yeah.
400, $500 doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it can be a real battle with some of these, little pots of money, like the Catherine Blood at the Library of Congress. She's got such a rigmarole to go through to get stuff into her collection. I mean, it's just, she's like, no, can't do it. Like,
No.
what the hell,
No, I'm glad you brought that up. Because again, like we hate it, but also it's facts. And I working in even in commercial galleries, the amount of times I've written press releases that's like such and such gallery just placed such and such piece with such and such important institution, and it was donated.
Yep.
Yeah, it was donated. And then you've got the line on the CV, which then opens doors. And I think particularly if you're fortunate enough to be in a position where you have a gallery that's already kind of really taking care of the turning art into money side of your practice, then like just donating to an institution is, yeah, that can sweeten the pot, because as you spoke to, sometimes it's not just the it's not that they don't have $600, it's the paperwork and the process to get access to that $600 to collect your piece will be the barrier.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Um One more quick question on the logistical side, and then I want to open it up and give you time for final thoughts. Because we're talking about galleries, artists, we talked about how important gallery representation is, but just kind of back on that, curators collecting through a gallery versus through a individual artist. Why does that happen? And how often does that happen? What is that? Because I worked with a lot of institutions through gallery settings, and sometimes I would wonder, I would be like, are you just going right to the artist? Like I really didn't know because it's not like artists are hard to find these days.
Right.
Yeah,
I
in
feel
terms of contact. Yeah.
right. I mean, I feel like that's between the gallerist and the artist. Like if you guys have I've had many artists say to me, you have to go through my gallery, and that's how it should be. And I respected that, even if it cost me
Right.
more or whatever. I mean, artists need to get paid. So,
Yeah.
honest. And another thing, people are always like, yeah, did you ask for a discount? I've stopped asking for it. I don't want a discount. If I ever ask you for one of your works, don't offer me a discount. It's stupid. Nobody needs a fucking discount. Sorry. um, sorry, where was I? Oh
We're
yeah,
just
the
talking
deal.
about like,
Yeah.
collecting from galleries versus collecting directly from artists. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't I mean I have thought about it, talked to people sort of, and then I've always been like, nope, I'm going through the gallery.
Yeah. So that acquisition falls under the exclusive representation agreements that artists often have with galleries as well. That makes sense.
Right.
Um, and I think artists at a certain level in their career truly, I think in my experience, enjoy turning all of that over to somebody else because
Right.
they don't want to be filling out 10 pages of paperwork from the museum. They want to be in the studio making. So that's true too. So
Yeah.
um okay, any final thoughts? Anything I didn't hit, Anne, before we open up for questions?
Yeah, I do want to say a couple things. One, if you're not listening to Platemark and Hello Print Friend, you should be. Miranda has wonderful things, wonderful content, and so does Ronaldo. He's right there. Hello, Ronaldo. Over on Platemark, we have a history of prints series, which if you have never had a history of prints in your career as an academic student sort of person, you should go back and start with Durr and listen to True wax rhapsodic about prints and why they're so important. And then the other thing I wanted to say is we're gearing up for the Baltimore Fine Art Print Fair in October 23rd, 26th. And I'm still looking for galleries to fill up the last booths. And I've had a couple of groups of artists band together and get booths. So 4 artists, 3 artists, even I think I have one pair. And if that seems like something you can do and you can come up with some name like Windblown Editions or something, think about it because it's the way to get self-represented artists in there. I mean, I'm not having tables like Brooklyn, it's really set aside for galleries, publishers, and print shops. But we're definitely interested in groups of artists.
Cool. Beautiful.
So I was going to ask you both at the very end, is there anything like that you wanted to promote shamelessly? Miranda, would you like the
I
same
can,
opportunity?
yes. So, shameless promotion. Hello Print Friend now has an artist residency in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and we have an application on our website, and you can come to Thailand. We've got a fee, and it's all inclusive for all materials and where you're staying, basically everything but your transport. And you can come to Chiang Mai, which is actually an incredible print city. It's a city of only like 200,000 people, but it has over a dozen print shops. They're making amazing work here. The food is world class. There's 300 Buddhist temples here. There's art museums and crafts and markets, and it's a really, really nice place to visit. So you can go to helloprintfriendstudios.com to learn more. So please check that out.
I'm also a huge fan of creating rumors. Would you mind potentially giving insider knowledge about an SGCI slash Hello Print Friend Studios collaboration?
Yes. So Miles and I decided that it was high time we honor the I in SGCI.
This was a
And
board decision. This is not me. This is
I know. This is
SGCI
not
board
conspiratorial.
decision.
No, I'm trying to make this sound like as rumory as possible. But no, and actually to Claudia's credit, I heard her say it too. So, this has been a conversation for a long time. It wasn't just Myles and I. But we are in talks to arrange a print event, an SGCI experience in Chiang Mai, which will be a curated, all-inclusive package to come to Chiang Mai and be driven around in wonderful air-conditioned vans and taken to all of these incredible studios, taken to amazing restaurants, taken to museums, getting insider access to the print world here, the art world here. And we're thinking about June. So basically, essentially in 1 year from now. And we're working with Thai partners on the ground to get like even better insight into what this should be, to make sure it's like very representational of the art world here. And we're really, really excited because there is so much here. And honestly, it's what we're looking at offering you is nothing you would ever find on Google. Like it's going to be like truly you come here and you're going to see things and have access to amazing art things that you wouldn't any other way, restaurants you wouldn't know to go to, all of that. So I think it's going to be really, really exciting. And we're going to have some info sessions coming up later on this year. So keep an eye out for those. And yeah, there's tons of stuff. I don't want to give away too much right now, but it's going to be like very, very, very fun.
Love it. I'm excited. We've
How
got a
many
question.
people are you taking on these trips, Miranda?
What was the number we had? 20?
I think 20 for the physical excursion with some exhibition and virtual programming for those who can't make the journey.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it goes well, we just do it again.
Yeah, we used to do more. And yeah, I was gonna say, and then it also includes like staying at like a 5-star hotel. And let me tell you, like Thailand is a nice hotel. Have you seen White Lotus?
White Lotus.
Less murder though.
I have a question, but I want to ask Phyllis's first because I think it's an excellent question over here in the chat. I'd love to hear your thoughts about collaborative print exchange portfolios, such as the kind made for nearly every artist-run printmaking conference. Very true. It seems like these kinds of portfolios might provide glimpses to one, artists not always visible in the commercial galleries, and two, the lineage is, yes, connections and dialogues underway in the field. Do you think these portfolios regain or lose historical relevance or value over time? Mm,
We didn't collect any of those.
why not?
That's a good question. Um, we did have mixed portfolios, but they'd be like the Leo Castelli 70th birthday one that had Rauschenberg and et cetera in it. Um, but I do think that there is room for that. I mean, that to me seems like an ideal gift for a museum. Phyllis, unmute. Where are you? I don't know. That's a tough one because yeah, we didn't know they were happening. I mean, that's really the main problem is that the curator types don't know what's happening at SGC. We didn't pay any attention. It was totally off our radar. We did not know who was winning the big prizes. We didn't know nothing.
It's interesting to think about because can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Because now more and more as people retire, for example, I'm hearing friends who are suddenly they're sitting with, 30, or more exchange portfolios, and there's some incredible work. Sometimes you have like really early work by somebody. I mean, I think of them in some ways as being almost like insurance. Like if somebody loses their studio, we have each other's work because we traded it, right? So we've never really formalized it as an insurance plan, but it does seem like things are vulnerable when people start to lighten their load and figure out if they've got to downsize, like what happens to those portfolios, and will an institution actually accept a donation of them? Like I think I can think of several reasons why curators might say they didn't want it. Like they don't want responsibility for every single print in that portfolio, whereas it does come together as a package. But I was just really curious whether it ever came up for you, like in a print strong collection like in Baltimore, or discussions with other print curators.
No. Um, I'm feeling like maybe one came through with a larger gift from a donor or something. But I wonder if you peoples at institute and at universities have you been giving things like that to the libraries there? Okay.
Yeah, like for prints, well, for example, SGCI's archive, but besides that, the Zuckerman at KSU, um, the University of Guelph, when I was a student there and teaching there, they collected portfolios. Um, I remember when I was a student in London, we donated a portfolio, whether they wanted it or not, to the British Library, and they just accepted it. So now it's in the collection there. But that was a pushy donation situation from, master's students. Um, Storage becomes a big issue completely. The last job I had at Winthrop University, I acquired, I want to say 30 to 40 portfolios because one was done every year. And I left that position and pushed it on to the new gallery director. Sorry, but
It's a great point, Miles. I was planning to say something about storage and the not endless, bottomless
yeah.
amount of it. People are really cutting back now on what they'll take. And if it's difficult to store or if it needs special, whatever, it's becoming much more of a conversation. Or if something needs conservation, Jesus, how much money is that going to cost? So I feel like the ground is shifting a little bit underneath all of our feet in that regard because the BMAs they just moved into a new storage room and I don't think they really accounted for too much more growth, honestly.
Yeah,
And it's a problem.
I know over the years, 30 years of teaching, I was two portfolios every year, and I've only given away three of them, only because I like them, I want to keep them. But you can put it down there, when I go, he's gonna take care of that 200 portfolios. I mean, it's all about that.
Was that I'm having a hard time hearing Calvin. Sorry. Was there a question in there?
No, there's not a question,
Okay.
a statement of
Okay,
having
just checking.
portfolios. I started collecting portfolios back in 1988 and have had three portfolios every semester. So a year ago, so I've got quite a large amount of portfolios, and never thought about giving them away. Except I did give a few to people over the years. But if one goes, like if I was to go, and I'm not getting any younger, I might have a studio of massive portfolios that are just sitting there with prints and art. A lot of them are really, really very good. So, it'd be a nice place to know that you could actually give them, but you're right, there's not room for that kind of stuff. If every faculty member who did portfolios would give them away, you get inundated with them.
Yeah, it's a it's a problem for sure. Yeah. I at some point I was talking with Deanne Proja at Saga about having a session kind of like this about artists' estates and planning for your work and all that stuff, which we haven't done yet, but that's something that we might talk about, Miles, because it's can be such a load on your nieces, nephews, sons, daughters, whoever it is. Um, so
Especially in the printmaking, I got like 5 presses too. Presses and prints, and who's gonna take care of that? These Shafer don't have any waste. You never know.
Well, the physical equipment alone, like out of portfolios, there's one that's always stuck with me, and I put a link to it, I believe, in the chat at the one of the Tates. I thought it was the Tate Contemporary, actually, not the Tate Britain, but the London portfolio, which has a Damien Hirst, an Angus Fairhurst, a Tracy Emin. It's got all of the YBAs in it, and like at a formative age, looking at that portfolio, knowing that it's so popular, and they bring it out every year to show whoever's lucky enough to get into that special room. Um, but like Sang Mi is saying there as well, like Peter Briggs had collected quite a few print exchanges for APRC at Texas Tech Museum. They were donated largely. He often mentioned difficulties housing them, as he rather preferred to highlight individual artist profiles and characters. Exchange portfolios may often seem massive and hard to track the individual contributions. Heck yeah. We just appointed an archive liaison for the archives for SGCI. They're going to have a job forever. And but yeah, tricky sauce. Blake Saunders, our newly appointed executive director, just came up with this idea because we get gifted or offered a lot of these portfolios, including equipment. And how can we use them to exhibit and highlight the artist, but also maybe generate some funds so we can keep costs down for the whole organization? So a collector's corner or something like that when we start doing these larger exhibitions. But it's something that we don't want to get lost or thrown out. We want to highlight it and we want to bring it back to the surface again so other people can enjoy it and hopefully benefit from it. It's a tricky situation. Who's going to store it temporarily?
Yeah, it's a problem.
Are there any questions in the chat? Oh. John, I used to work at a small museum which put on a catfish exchange exhibition a few years ago, but I believe that was strictly because most of the names were already recognized outside of just the print world. The curator at the time was also an artist, which helps. I love that. What big institution used to do the postcard exchange? It was like the RCA or something like that. And you would bid and you didn't know who you would get until the very end. And it could have been a student or it could have been a blue chip.
I don't know who that was.
I
Oh,
like that idea. We should bring
Actually,
those back.
that reminded me of a question I didn't have a chance to get to, but I think it's a good one, which is for Anne. From your point of view, what institution should print friends have on their radar to approach about collecting? Like from what you know, like who actively collects works on paper or prints?
oh, that's a tough one. Uh, God. Um, I mean, there are places that are just graphic arts centered, like the Achenbach, but within a larger institution, or the Janet Turner Print Museum at UC Chico.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. I think you have to. I don't know. I feel like though, Miles, we should talk later about approaching Catherine Blood about an SGCI package of representational something, 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 something for the Library of Congress.
Let's go.
Yeah. I wanted to say one other thing. You mentioned the special room. It's one of my pet peeves. The rooms are there for you guys. It's yes, you need to make an appointment. You can't just call.
Wash your
People,
hands.
you have to wash your hands, whatever their rules are, but you absolutely should go in there and go look at your heroes. You should go in there and look at the Rembrandts or whatever it is you're interested in, your friends, the portfolio you donated last year. Um, they're for you. So almost every museum has one, and they expect you guys to call. And I implore you to make use of that resource.
Mhm.
I would take students and blush when I would go in there. I would just be so happy that they were experiencing that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's so gratifying watching the students' heads explode. So
Question in
great.
the chat from Angela. How much do curators read exhibition reviews, art essays, print publications? Are there print reviewers, writers? Where do curators, collectors learn about current practices in printmaking?
That's a great question. So we all lament the late great Art and Print magazine. That was our Bible. Yeah. And I talked to Susan Teller, the editor, about reviving it, and she's like, "No, there is zero way to make any dollar doing that. Like they couldn't sustain themselves through subscriptions." Um, somebody recently, actually, a couple people said to me recently that Hello Print Friend and Plate Mark are filling in that gap for them, which I think is awesome. different. It's not as rigorously academic. Obviously, you know both our styles now. We are certainly not scholarly. Um, so yeah, I mean, curators curators read what they're interested in. There's a very scholarly one called the print. There used to be the Print Collectors Quarterly, but now there's another one in England, Print Quarterly, that has super academic. That's where curators get their stuff published. Um, but I would skim through it and I might read one by my colleague, but I certainly wasn't going through everything. And there's really, I think the contemporary shows and stuff, like if you're getting picked up by hyperallergic, I'll read that or, something like that. But nobody's doing a really good job of covering any of that stuff. So it's really, I kind of depend on Instagram, honestly, to let me know what the hell's going on at this point.
As far as looking at prints, what intrigues you when you see it that comes out new, then you look at that kind of stuff. In other words, you see a print show and there's something that looks unusual to you, which is part of the new methods of what I mean.
It's what intrigues you. It's what captures your eye when you're
Oh,
walking
yeah, for sure.
by.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, as a printmaker, I've always been a technician too, because of being a printmaker. And there are things that happen that maybe the work itself isn't all that exciting image-wise, but it's really exciting in the techniques used. And some of them brand new.
And that's the technique versus the concept.
Right.
And that brings me to one quick question I had, and it's something that Anne actually said way back at the beginning. And I'm like, I'm writing that down because she's not going to want me to ask this question. You said you're after good work, Anne. What is good work?
Oh, shoot. Oh, okay. So,
Miranda, same question's coming to you.
okay. So first, let me describe how different my outlook is on what makes for good, important work now than when I was a curator at a museum. The bar was really high at the museum. God help me if I brought something decorative, bad word, decorative in, or something that was pretty. If it didn't have content, I didn't even pitch it. Period. I mean, things would slip into the collection as part of a larger group of things. The bar has definitely lowered. There's definitely room for everybody in the pool. I mean, I don't really want kittens and sailboats, but I like people to know what they're trying to say. I like people to if you're going to commit to making a print, you need to know what you want to say and you need to commit, right? So I feel like printmakers probably have that challenge from the get-go and usually mean it when they make it. Um, yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It was so hard. I've written about what makes a good print. I'll send everybody a link.
Miranda, I hope your response includes, I asked you years ago and you might not remember, and like what has been selling when you were in Seattle? And you came up with two very specific check boxes. And I hope you remember what those two were. Because I
Was one of them chairs and empty rooms?
yes,
Yeah.
chairs
Always
and
the
empty. And what was the second one?
chairs and empty rooms.
It was a color.
Red.
No, it's green.
Green. Well, we're in a red era now. This was what, 8 years ago when we first met. Well, there's in the commercial art world, there's a turn of phrase that's like, if you can't make it good, make it red. If you can't make it red, make it big. Which is why I was thinking maybe it was red.
I heard that from Jenny Robinson.
Yes. Although her work is big and good, but yeah, so uh Erica Walker has a great phrase for what makes a good image, and she says it's something that hits you in the breadbasket. But I do think about that. It just, gets you in the breadbasket. Um, which I'm not entirely sure what it means, but I do think about it when I'm asked this question, which is of course that horrible answer of like you know it when you see it, right? Like what is that famous senator say that about pornography or something like that, right? Like I don't know how to define it, but I know it when I say it. But it's like it's that idea of like, and it's so it's different for every person, every curator. There's themes and trends and there's a zeitgeist, that definitely informs it. But generally speaking, it can be quite unpredictable. I mean, there were working commercial galleries, like there were pieces that were, $80,000 that did nothing for me, that someone would come in and see it on the wall and just be like, this is it. Like, this is the piece that speaks to my soul, right? So I think it is difficult to define. I mean, I think if there are you know, rules about composition and colors, and like we like some colors together more than others, but who is the retired ceramics, the eccentric retired John at Alfred,
John
who
Gill.
John Gill, who says all colors work together, some have to work harder than others.
Hmm.
So I mean, there's always exceptions, right, to all of it. So I think for me, and it's maybe because I have an art historical background, and Anne spoke to this a little bit as well, knowing the shoulders on whom you stand, on whose you stand. If I look at a piece and I can see that it is aware of where it comes from and is claiming its own piece in that legacy, that gets me in my breadbasket. That is like, okay, like this is so strongly of a tradition and so strongly yours individually as an artist. I think that always really gets me if that's not vague enough. Yeah. And toast or vases.
Good plug. Good plug.
My
Mhm.
uh I have a list of questions that I ask when I come upon something new, and I can't remember what they all are. I was just trying to find my list online, but it's there somewhere. But some of the questions are one of my pet peeves is too many things. Like, are you saying, is what you're saying, could you say it with fewer things? Could you say it with less? Because I like to challenge you to reduce down to the essence of what you're trying to say. Um, I I like to get gut punched. I like to stop in my tracks. I like to, and it's all personal. Like taste always comes into it. Like every curator has personal taste, and as much as you try to not let that influence what you're going after, it's hard. It's a challenge. Um, I had one colleague that collected really ugly art all the time. Ugly, 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 ugly. And but she always made a pitch for, terrible beauty or whatever it was. But I was always attracted to nice, pretty blue green things.
Animals, that was always mine.
Yeah,
Like
your
it,
animals, right?
it's just like if there's an animal in it, I'll be like, oh, I like this piece. And like I won't even like think like, oh, it's an animal and I like animals. I'll just be like walking through like the county fair, like community art exhibition, and I'll stop in front of the cow and I'll be like, best piece. Like it's just we all have our things. Mm-mm.
I think we're there, team. I
Okay.
think we did it. Looking over the chat, we're covered. I want to thank you both for this fantastic and well-informed talk. Thank you. Again, please make sure you check out their podcast offerings. And I'd like to thank all of you for your membership with SGCI as always. We plan to provide more events like this and encourage you to please spread the good word of what SGC is doing these days. Check out our new membership tiers as well. And if you know anyone in academic institutions or community print shops, we have two new specific tiers specifically for them. Send us your questions, consider getting involved. And again, watch your socials and watch your email for 3 exciting upcoming opportunities. Thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your time.
Thank you so much for your great questions, everyone. Find us and ask more if you have them. We're around. We love you. We couldn't do our jobs without you.
I just put a link in the chat to a blog post about what I consider to be my questions for great art.
Oh, inside scoop.
Amazing.
Thank you.